Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Goaltending, where your why is bigger than your excuses. I'm your host, Will Bland. Today, we have an incredible guest joining us to talk about health, nutrition, fitness, so many great things that will help you on your journey. Before I get into introducing her, I do want to just say thank you for tuning in and allowing us to be a part of your journey. Don't forget, if you enjoy the message in today's episode, like, subscribe, share it with somebody else that it can help. I guarantee you know somebody that today's episode is going to help. So thank you all again. To get right into our guest, she is a board-certified geriatric pharmacist, a certified fitness professional, and a certified nutrition coach, currently using the Faster Way to Fat Loss program. I'm excited to get into that because I'm new to hearing about that program, and I've been in sports and I've done some different diets, a lot of different things. So when I started hearing about this, it really made sense. Mm-hmm. So that's a big part of why I wanted to bring you in today. Truly dedicated to her mission, empowering people to take charge of their health and to find balance in their lives. She has over 30 years of experience to bring to the conversation. It's specialized in developing individualized health. So it's not about just, hey, this one's for everybody, you know. I truly believe that having a healthy mind begins with taking care of your physical health. And that's a big part of why I wanted to bring her in today. Amy Wilson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So first off, I guess let's just get into your journey. What got you to the fitness coaching and nutrition coaching in your life?
So it's I'll give you the short, long version. So I started, and most females will maybe relate to this. I started dieting probably in 6th grade. And unfortunately, that hasn't stopped. I still see kids who are dieting. And unfortunately, now we have Instagram and all the TikToks, which we didn't have before back in my day, but the social pressure was still there. So I started dieting in 6th grade and just kind of played sports and danced. When I went to college, I swear to God, I was not going to gain the freshman 15. I mean, that was like not doing it. And so I actually became an aerobics instructor. So I started teaching fitness classes and loved it. Absolutely loved it. I will tell you, I am a exercise addict. And how I know that is I've actually been diagnosed as an exercise addict. When I was 29, I blew my back out. L5-S1 surgery when I was 29. And I'm sitting in my doctor's office after my MRI, and he looks at me and says, "You're an exercise addict." And I said, "So? Why is that bad? I'm not smoking. I'm not drinking.
Right.
Everything else. How is that bad?" And he's like, "You don't understand the wear and tear that you're doing to your body." Mm-hmm. And I'm like, "Okay, you think I would learn, right? They think it because you just had this major surgery." No, I was actually teaching within 12 weeks after that surgery. I was back at it because all that time I was trying to out-train a bad diet. I didn't know at the time that I was trying to out-train a bad diet. I was just trying to be the norm, to be the skinny. I was a girl with a butt and legs, and the norm at that time was very, very kind of rail thin.
Right.
My nutrition wasn't great. I started looking into nutrition, but back then we had the low fat craze, and then we had Atkins. So then we went high protein, and everything that we were getting at that time was not a real solution. They were fad diets.
Yeah.
And so I started looking at nutrition, and I actually coached other programs before this. And then here I am, a pharmacist too. And I'll be honest with you guys, pharmacists, nurses, doctors do not get nutrition in school. We get very small amount, and it's mainly about what your body requires. And if you're sick, that's all we get. We don't get how to stay healthy. There is no pre-planning. There is no how do we prevent anything. It's not there. It's here's medication. And I'll be totally upfront with you. I'm a pharmacist who does not want you on medication. If you can do it without, then that's what we want.
Yeah.
So fast forward, what I did in my 20s, teens, finally started catching up with me in my 40s when perimenopause hormones takes over. And we see that, I see this in my male clients too, is like everything we did kind of starts catching up with us.
Mm-hmm.
When I was starving myself, I didn't realize that, no, I wasn't burning fat. And we still think that we're burning fat when we're starving ourselves. I was burning muscle, slowing my metabolism down. Well, that catches up to you. Mm-hmm. And it's not just because, oh yeah, it's that stage of life. Your metabolism really does not slow down, we know, until you're about 65, 70. So all the excuses that we use that, oh, it's because I'm over 30 or I'm over 40 and it's my metabolism slowing down. No, you have slowed down. You're sitting more. I was teaching 10 to 15 classes a week, doing my own workouts, and I was still gaining inches, like nothing fit. And it was frustrating. And here I am, I coached other people. Why can't I get my stuff together? I mean, It was frustrating. So I was doing a lot of research. I saw some other people doing the program that I now coach, the Faster Way to Fat Loss, found that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, holy crap, we have science. And then I started going down the rabbit hole of science and understanding what happens when we put food in our body, what happens when we put the right food, and not necessarily the wrong food, but not the best food in our body. What happens? And it was like ding, 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 ding. All of a sudden the pharmacy came into play, the nutrition came into play, and the fitness came into play. And I'm like, okay, this is the Holy Trinity.
Yeah.
Because I work in nursing homes. And at the same time, I'm seeing my residents get younger and younger and younger. Like we're talking 40s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Here in our
40
area.
40-year-olds.
And I just had one who was 42 who got admitted over the weekend. And it is lifestyle. It is diabetes. Yeah. It is heart attacks and strokes, colon cancer, all happening at a younger age. And a lot of these things are preventable. Because we're not meant to grow old and frail. We're meant to thrive. So long story, short story, this is where I am today.
Wow. First off, so I think part of what I love about it, and a part of like what I wanted to bring into the conversation today, is like you talking about taking a nutrition first approach over a medicine first.
Yeah.
And as a pharmacist, so I think that's really important to point out, and I want to get into that. I have a little bit of, I guess, background knowledge or understanding of diets, but I'd say it's more so like I've done a few and I've learned along the way, and I continue to learn and still have a lot to learn. So can you just talk about a little bit, I guess, the faster way to fat loss approach? Like what's different about it? I
would say the approach is that we're going to say, get rid of the scale. The scale does not define you. And that freaks a lot of my clients out at first, because that is what we've used to measure ourselves, is that scale. Scale measures gravity. Scale does not measure body composition. And we need to get rid of that number that we have in the head, because my husband still has a number too. And so it's not just females, it's men and women both have a number that's like, this is where I felt great. Okay. Well, the problem is, especially with females, we put an emotional attachment sometimes to that number too. And it's not that number. What we have to realize is a body composition. And we need to change from being so focused on a weight number and start focusing on how much muscle mass we have, and to burn body fat. And the only way to do that is to fuel our body. The faster way to fat loss approach is one, baby steps, because it takes time. You can't just, I do the 1% rule. Every day we get better. It's progress over perfection. We are not meant to throw something at somebody and say, here, change your life. It doesn't work. With goal setting, it's baby goals. You have to kind of fine tune and find out what works for you. It's also, I work with behaviors, because a lot of our habits and behaviors have developed who we are and what we think about in health and nutrition, is changing that. And then it's going in, okay, so let's get rid of the junk. Let's get rid of the processed food and the ultra processed foods that's causing the inflammation, that's causing all the health problems. Let's go back to real food. And now this is the scary part for most people, is how much food you really absolutely have to eat.
Right.
And that's scary, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to gain all this weight. No, you're not. When you start fueling your body, it's amazing the things that will happen, because your body is one big chemical reaction. And if we can give it the right source of energy, the right nutrition, those chemical reactions can occur. So in the first 6 weeks, it's just building that foundation and learning the principles, learning what protein, fats, and carbs, learning how much that you need. Because yes, you need fats and carbohydrates, not just protein. We need it all. And it's learning how much you need for your individual needs, how active you are, how old you are. And then we also do something that's called carb cycling. So we will take it down carbohydrates a couple days a week. That does not mean keto. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, but keto. Okay. There is a certain population who thrives on keto who can do very well. It's in their DNA. Most people cannot. Okay. And when you bring carbohydrates back in, that opens the floodgates. And if you're on something, you're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that again because it was so hard. That's a problem. It needs to work with you, not against you, because it has to be a lifestyle. This is not a diet. This is a lifestyle plan. And that's the biggest difference.
I like that you brought up the micro goals, like the making gradual changes, because I was seeing a lot of people start out on fitness journeys and they fizzle out because it doesn't happen overnight. Oh, they think they can just change like a whole history of bad habits and behaviors and eating.
We see it every week. I ask my clients, are you in? And the reason I do that is because we see it on January 1st. We see it. We see the gyms. They explode. And January 1st, oh my gosh, I'm going to do it this year. This is the best thing ever. And it's all in. I've cleaned out the pantry. I'm only eating lettuce. And by week 1, it starts to fizzle. Week 2, a little more. And week 3, it's like, peace out. I'm done. And we see that. And that trajectory is like, I used to take my 5:30 in the morning classes when I used to teach, you'd see no bikes or no room for any of the equipment. And the regulars be like, oh, just wait to the third week and they'll all be gone. And it's so true. Maybe a couple people will say, but most people are not wired to change themselves overnight, and it doesn't work. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah.
My wife and I, like we both have our own like health and fitness journeys. Like we do it as a team, but we also have grown to recognize like we have different body compositions and the female anatomy is different. Can you talk a little bit about, in terms of those individualized approaches for like females specifically in using faster way to fat loss?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're doing it as a couple, don't kill your husband, because men do see results much quicker. And that sometimes is on the women's psyche. Like, this is not fair. But the difference is that it really is our fat distribution. Men can put on muscle much quicker than women can. And so it is a longer process. But I always tell people is that this is for health. This is so that what are you doing for your future self in 20, 40 years? Right. You can't ask yourself anymore. It's like, oh, I would tell my younger self this. Okay, younger self has been there, done that, gone. It's not there anymore. But your future self isn't there yet. So what are you doing to prepare yourself for the future? And for females, one, we can stop worrying about the scale and stop worrying about that number, and we can start focusing on muscle. Men need to focus on muscle too. It's just the results that men get can be much quicker than women. Okay. And that's just understand that what you're doing is still the right thing. It just takes us a little bit longer. Has to do with our hormones, has to do with the fact that we're programmed to be able to carry babies. There's all these other different things that are occurring, but it's still me, back in the day, they say, oh, women shouldn't put muscle on at all. That is so wrong. And anybody listening, you will not turn out to be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I love Arnold, but if you're female, there's only one way to do that is with help. And Arnold did not get to where he was without help either. Right. I mean, if you watch his documentary, he even says he took supplements, he took steroids. So you're not going to get that way.
Well, so I was told this before. Can you confirm, like putting on muscle, like per pound of muscle that you add to your body, doesn't that increase your metabolism?
It does.
Boost your metabolic rate?
It does boost your BMR, which is your basal metabolic rate. That's just what I'm doing sitting. That's what I'm doing blinking, what I'm doing breathing. The more muscle that I have on, the higher my metabolism is going to be. And if I'm fueling my body, that means that I can burn fat instead of burn muscle. When we underfuel, when we undereat, being on a diet, we are not burning fat. No, I don't care what any Instagram influencer says, TikTok, you don't eat your body's going to go for the quickest source, and that's muscle. And we should be in the muscle saving, muscle building. That's what we need to be working on now.
Yeah.
Not when we get the call from the doctor that says, hey, you need to do this. Start doing it now. If you're in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 50s, there's no better time than start now.
Right. So being proactive, being intentional.
Proactive. Absolutely.
Gotcha. I guess the last couple of years I've gotten into macros.
Yeah.
So like using macros, and I'm still learning a lot because to this point, I haven't had a coach. I am part of, why I wanted to bring you in is because I am thinking about getting a coach.
Yeah.
And so I have some understanding of macros, but it's really just been from me playing around with the numbers, seeing what works. And so can you explain, because not everybody's going to be familiar with what macros even is. Can you explain what macros is?
So macros are macronutrients, which are the big building blocks of what we need. And they're the biggest building blocks. They are proteins, they're fats, they're carbohydrates. Mm-hmm. That's all macros are. And when we say macro tracking, we're just tracking how much protein, how much carbohydrates, how much fat that you are intaking. Micronutrients, you'll hear micros, and that's your vitamins and minerals. The reason why it's important to track your macros or know what you need is because let's look at calories is what we've done for years. Mm-hmm. You need this many calories. You need this much energy. It's BS. It really is, because you could get all your calories. Let's say you're supposed to get 2,500 calories. Mm-hmm. You could get all that from Snickers bar if you wanted to, from protein bars, from chips, right. But you are not going to see the results that you need. And that is because our bodies are one big chemical reaction. Mm-hmm. If you're feeding it crap, it's like, I'm sure I'll do the car analogy. If you have a Lamborghini Ferrari, you're not going to pull up in the gas station and get the cheapest gas.
Right.
And most people want to see, hey, what's under the hood? How does under the hood look? Well, you're looking at the car on the outside, but you also want to see what's on the inside.
Yeah.
If we're feeding our body ultra processed foods, which is those Snickers bars, anything that really comes in a package, your hamburger helper, then what's under the hood is not good. And it's going to also reflect on the outside. Mm-hmm. So when we start looking at macronutrients, we're looking also at the quality of food that you're intaking. And everybody is different. Some people will do better with a certain ratio that might be a little bit higher in carbohydrates and maybe lower in fat. And somebody might do a better ratio with maybe they go a little higher in protein. And that's where it's nice to work with a coach, because you can go to any app. There are several apps out there that are macro trackers, meaning that you put your food in, it tells you what you need. The problem is that if working with a coach, you're going to be able to tell, how are you feeling? How are you feeling when you're working out? Are you seeing a difference? Are you feeling foggy? Are you feeling energetic on certain days? Like when we carb cycle, are you feeling better on one day than the other day? Do you feel like you're hitting a wall? Are you hungry? And an app is really not going to ask that. It's going to take your weight, your height, your activity level and say, this is what you need. Well, that's a great starting point. But at the same point, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm 30 grams short of carbohydrates. What am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. That's what's great to ask a coach and be like, okay, here's your option. Okay, we can have a couple bananas. We can do some rice. We can do some potatoes. And yes, rice, potatoes, and bananas are not bad for you. They get a bad rap. Mm-hmm. Eggs get a bad rap. What's bad for you is all the ultra processed foods, the sugars. And that's the stuff that we want to take out, and we want to track the good stuff.
Yeah. Like clean eating, basically, getting rid of
clean eating. Yeah. And the thing is that you have to realize, though, someone says, well, I'm clean eating. And I was just talking to someone who was looking at using me as a coach, and I went through her pantry and everything was healthy. It was healthy and it was marked healthy. And the thing is, a lot of it was processed healthy food. Mm-hmm. So you think you're eating clean, or she thought she was eating enough of protein, but she really wasn't. Mm. And it's like, that's another reason why to have a coach is because we're going to guide you as to what you need and help you with those baby steps and get there. I don't want to say orderly fashion, but in a baby step fashion, so where it's not so overwhelming.
Right. And then it's something that you can actually maintain long term, like not just I'm trying to hit a goal right now and then stop. It's a lifestyle change.
Well, and I'm going to tell anybody, if you will not let your son or daughter on the program that you're doing, then why are you doing it?
Good question.
And we have so many of those programs out there, whether it be shakes, little little fuel packets or a certain diet that somebody will go on. And it's like, I have to make this for me and the rest for my family.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then run fast
Right.
because it's setting you up for failure and it's actually setting you up for disease later
Mm-hmm.
in life. And that's what people don't realize. They think it's the quick fix. It's the high school reunion, the wedding. Great. But what happens after that?
Yeah.
And how is it going to serve you? And how are you going to be in 20 years? Did that cause more damage than actual good? Did that hurt your hormones? Because that's what dieting does. It hurts your hormones, especially thyroid.
Okay.
So if you're doing things that are drastic, you're going to have to pay for that later. It's kind of like, these cash stations that you go to that you can give your check and they'll give you
some cash now places.
Yeah, cash now. It's kind of like what we're doing is we're borrowing against our future self. So if we are doing something very quick, we lost muscle. We put stress on our thyroid, put stress on our other hormones. We put stress on our body. Mm-hmm. We are borrowing against our future self. And eventually you're going to have to pay up.
I like that.
Yeah.
I've not heard that analogy before, and I like thinking of it that way. You're making an investment. When you make healthy decisions, you're making an investment in your future self.
Absolutely.
And whenever you're making bad decisions, you're withdrawing from that account.
Exactly.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's good. So you've brought up carb cycling a couple times, and I've heard of it before, but I've never done carb cycling. I'm not super familiar with it. I'm sure that there's people listening who may not be familiar with it. Can you explain a little more about why? What is carb cycling and why?
Okay, so what we want in our bodies is what's called metabolic flexible. And metabolic flexible means that you can be a sugar burner or a fat burner. Most of the time we want ourselves to be a fat burner because that's what everybody wants. It's like, I want to burn fat so I look lean and everything. But sometimes you need that quick energy too, that sugar burner.
Yeah.
But we always don't want to be in that sugar burner. And I always tell people, they're like, well, how do I know I'm a sugar burner? Are you hungry 2 hours after you eat? Do you feel like you have to eat every 2 hours? Are you having that mid-afternoon slump where you're having to go to Starbucks or get the coffee? Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you need a nap? Are you foggy-headed? Those are all indications that you are constantly a sugar burner. Well, what we want to do is make you metabolic flexible. We want to have you where you are burning fat. And when you are burning fat, it means that everything is right in your body. It means that our blood sugar is stable. It means that you're fueling your body. It means that you're able to build muscle. And so what we do is we use carb cycling to help make yourself metabolic flexible. So 2 days a week for females, 3 days a week for guys. Okay. We take those carbohydrates down at that time. And people are like, oh, it's keto. Keto is 20 grams or less of carbs. We never go that low. Yeah. Good luck on that.
That sounds like a challenge because I like my carbs.
When I started eating carbs again, I was like, man, I'm losing inches like crazy. This is like mind blowing. Yeah. But what we do is that 2 days a week, and we don't go that far because you're still eating carbs. Mm-hmm. But we also increase the fat that day because you still need energy, and we keep the protein the same. Okay. I call it my peanut butter days. Yeah. It's great. I do carry the type 2 diabetes gene from my dad. Thanks, Dad. Really appreciate that. And so for me, my macros are set at a certain percentages because I have to watch what I take, make sure I'm getting fats, carbs, good carbs, making sure that I'm, working to balance my blood sugar. When I started the faster way, I was pre-diabetic at a 5.7 A1C. That's what teaching classes, that's what I thought was I was eating healthy all the time. Yeah. That was, and that was actually macro tracking. I was macro tracking. The problem was not doing it correctly. And now I'm back down to a 5.3, which is normal. So even though I have that genetic predisposition, carb cycling, doing all the things that we call bringing back the carbs, regular macro day, weightlifting, HIIT training, you can't just go, oh, I want to do this part. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I want to, whatever's shiny and new. Right. Putting it all together, putting all the puzzle pieces together. That's where the magic happens.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's putting the pieces together. So it's not just working out. It's not just the way that you eat. It's a combination of all of it.
And it's not working out for hours. That was my mistake. Mm-hmm. And that's what a lot of people think. It's like, oh, I'm just going to go on the treadmill, or I'm going to start a running program, and I'm just going to do cardio. Well, the problem is that yeah, I worked out for hours. I was getting bigger because once again, I wasn't fueling my body and I was increasing cortisol. You also are doing things in your hormones, ghrelin and leptin, which are hormones that are used for appetite and telling your body that I do need to eat or telling my body I don't need to eat. When those hormones are out of whack, you start holding on to body fat, you start increasing inflammation. The other thing when you're doing ultra processed foods is we don't talk much about gut health. It's starting to become more and more when you're hearing about the microbiome and the gut health. Having ultra processed foods, having junk food kills that microbiome. Starving kills that microbiome. Stress kills that microbiome. We now, though, that microbiome with eating real food, with getting good workouts, not overworking out, but good planned workouts that are going to serve your body, we can decrease Alzheimer's, heart conditions, strokes, cancers. There's so much out there that we can prevent just by eating right and not killing our bodies with working out.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you save a ton of money by getting a coach who helps guide you on the journey instead of having to pay expensive medical bills down the road.
Well, yeah. And not only that, time. I mean, and think about going down, I would say analysis paralysis. Let's search how to lose weight or how to lose menopause weight or how to get muscle. And you're going to see bing, 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 bing on Google. So many different things. Of course, all the ads are going to come up in your feeds. And nothing seems that it's going to work for you, or you're hopeful, and then it's like, oh, this is just too hard. I can't do this. And all that time that you're actually wasting when you're like, hey, I just get a coach, and I call it plug and play, because you really do. You get this information, you get the workouts, you get me, you get meal plans. I help you because if you're not going to eat salmon, I'm not going to tell you to eat salmon. I mean, and it's like, how many times do you get
just eat it? It's okay.
How many times do you get a program like, what this? You want me to eat beef liver? Oh no, it's that kind of thing. It's like, I'm not eating that, and so it's working with your individual needs and to make sure that you are successful.
So that makes sense. I got to say that I was definitely at one time trying to outwork a bad diet.
I think we all are.
Especially like in college and then post-college, a long period of time. And I was like, well, as long as I like work out extra hard or do an extra workout, I just eat what I want. It's cool.
I used to go in teaching my step classes in college. I mean, seriously, you would smell the room and all it was alcohol pouring out of our pores. Yeah. It was like, you just smell the beer coming out.
So then another thing, in terms of talking about all of it pairing together, are there also certain types of workouts that you do on like your carb cycle days? So depending on what. So,
and especially for menopausal women, premenopausal women, that perimenopause starts in about 35. So if someone's like, oh, I'm too young. No, hate to say it, you're in there. HIIT training, and this is going to probably break some hearts, should only be done twice a week. So if you're doing Orange Theory every single day, you're going to the cycling class, and it's like, I was one of those instructors. You're not working hard enough unless you're leaving that DNA on the floor. You're not, and no, that's wrong. And 2 days a week, leave that DNA on the floor. Go hard. But your body can't take the constant abuse every single day. Okay. It craves movement. So don't get me wrong. If you're doing a light jog, if you're going for a walk, if you're doing an endurance ride, if you're going to a cycling class, that's different. You're not leaving it on the floor. Okay. And I'm not talking about sitting all day either, because our bodies are not meant to sit all day. They're meant to move. So HIIT training twice a week, moving your body, doing some kind of easy, steady state cardio the rest of the time. And then 2 days a week, you're just doing active recovery. That's the one thing that we keep forgetting about, and especially us exercise addicts, is that yoga, really? No. I used to think it was a waste of time. And now I realize how important stretching is, how important just going for a regular walk, not worrying about what my time is or jogging or running. 2 days a week, active recovery, 3 to 4 days a week, lifting.
That makes sense. I had to, I kind of self-learned. I started having, like some muscle and joint pains and tensions from over exercising and overtraining, not giving myself that recovery time. Yoga has been a savior. I've started to incorporate like foam rolling. those active recovery days are definitely where you talk about long term.
Yeah.
Like not just overworking out right now, but doing those things now are helping your muscles recover and helping you in the long term.
Keeping you flexible. And my body composition has gotten better by having those off active recovery days because your muscles need time to rebuild. They need time to regenerate. And the only way that you're going to do is they need some time. They need some time to recover.
Yeah. So another thing where we talked about the like this helps in terms of combating like diabetes. And so you brought up blood sugar. Like, so how can you tell me more about the impact that like your nutrition and exercise has on your blood sugar and like how that translates to combating diabetes or like other diseases?
So diabetes is a disease of inflammation. So is heart disease, high cholesterol. With how blood sugar works, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, because now we're seeing all these diet medications that are diabetes related. If you eat something, and everybody's always going to say carbs. Okay, so let's just say sugar. If you eat something, carbs get started with the digestion process in your mouth right away with an enzyme called amylase. It breaks it down, gets it into your blood system, and your blood sugar will start to rise. Insulin gets released. Insulin's not the bad guy. And everybody's like, oh, insulin. No, the bad guy is what we're putting in our body and causing our blood sugar to rapidly increase. When you eat ultra processed foods, things that are like, I'm going to say your candy bars, some of your protein bars are ultra processed, your chips, things that come in a bag that are prepared, that have artificial colors, artificial flavors, artificial sweeteners, all that kind of stuff will cause a direct impact on your blood sugar. So if your blood sugar spikes and goes up, by the way, that causes your increased aging cells. So there's other things besides diabetes. So it increases your aging and how rapidly you're aging. So what happens is you come up, insulin is then released because insulin's job is to take that blood sugar out of the blood system and put it either in the muscle, the liver, the fat cells.
Okay.
The more muscle you have, the more receptors you have. So what happens with type 2 diabetes is that those receptors stop working. So somebody is constantly, it's kind of like, you're constantly eating, and you're constantly giving it food that your body does not want or does not need.
Yeah.
Your blood sugar keeps rising. So insulin does keep getting released.
Okay.
It's kind of like talk to the hand. It's like, I'm just not dealing with you anymore. So the receptors start to shut down. Yeah. And your blood sugar stays high. And that is insulin resistant type 2 diabetes. When you lift weights, when you eat the real food, the real nutrition, start looking at macros, now we're talking about increasing your insulin sensitivity, which means more receptors, decreasing the resistance. So the receptors are now open, that they're not saying talk to the hand. They're saying, okay, come on, blood sugar, let's go. So some things that people can do is go for a walk right after they eat. And that is going to dramatically decrease their blood sugar because when you're walking, you're using so many different muscles, especially your legs, your glutes. They're using big muscles. Your body needs to pull that blood glucose in so that your muscles have the energy to work. Okay. So it's just a kind of a good thing if you're on the cusp of being type 2, if your A1C is high, your doctor's like, and I hate it when the doctor's going to say, oh, go low carb. No, that's not the answer. The answer is figuring out what's going on, figuring out your macronutrients, and let's get you on a good nutrition and exercise program. Yeah. And let's do it without just going low carb. Low carb is a Band-Aid. And medication, same thing. Medication is a treatment. It's not a cure. Right. And if someone gets diagnosed type 2 diabetes and they end up going on insulin, they have 8 years before they are totally insulin dependent. So if you're just starting insulin, or if it's something that's possibly in your family, you have the power. You can take control of your health and reverse that type 2 diabetes or reverse that pre-diabetes.
Right. So it's not even just you're not only doing this as preventative maintenance, but you can actually reverse
Yeah.
And so if you've been on that bad track and you are already seeing diabetes or some kind of health disease or issue, you can reverse that.
Yeah, because once you start with diabetes or heart disease, it's the triad. You have heart disease, then it's diabetes and high cholesterol, and now we're talking strokes, we're talking Alzheimer's, and then you're talking about ending up in my nursing homes, and that is not living.
Yeah.
When you have the power, and somebody's like, oh, I'll just take a medication for that. Oh, I'll just take a medication. We're very much a society of give me something. We're seeing that right now with the diabetes medications that works for weight loss. Someone's like, oh, well, hey, I can take a shot and lose weight. It's not that simple. Every single medication has a side effect. Guess what does not have a side effect? Nutrition and working out.
Boom.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Mic drop right there. Yeah. But it's not the easy way. It's not that it's not that easy button.
And that's why not everybody does it.
Right.
If it was easy, everybody'd be on board.
Yep.
So I wanted to bring up one of the biggest excuses that I hear really for pursuing any goal, but I also think is very prevalent when it comes to taking control of your health, and that's time.
Yes.
So people are always like, I don't have the time to, work out every day. Like I have to go to work and I have to do these things, or to, especially with macros, to like actually plan out your meals and what you're going to eat and doing those things. So do you agree that's a common obstacle that people present?
Absolutely.
And then how do we get past it?
So it's interesting to see because I have, let's say let's two clients. Both have the same amount of kids, same job, same whatever. Or I'll say one person who wants to be a client, one person who's a client. There is a definite, I was trying to say this nicely. There is a definite difference in people and attitudes and in goal setting. I will have people who have the same exact issues, same exact time constraints, and they put themselves first. And I'm going to make this work. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do this. And then I'll have somebody else be like, oh no, I just can't.
Yeah.
Because they don't put themselves first. They put everybody else first. And the person who put themselves first is now realizing that, hey, if I get my workout in, hey, if I get this food in, one, it's not only good for me, it's good for my family.
Right.
It's amazing how well kids behave and some of the behavioral issues that happen when you start feeding them real food and that disappear. When everybody's on board with the 30-minute workouts, maybe the spouse is helping out while you're getting the 30-minute workout, and then someone else, then you do something while they're getting their 30-minute workout.
Yeah.
When there's a team approach, when you say, you know what, I'm not living this way anymore and I'm going to make this work. That's where I see the people who say, okay, I'm going to make the time. And I hate the saying, we all have 24 hours a day. Yeah, we do. And everybody has something different going on in their lives.
Yeah.
It depends on what is your motivation, what is driving you to this point. It can't just be your dress size. I'm sorry. Right. It can't be or your pant size or your waist size. That's great but the problem is that usually was like, screw it. I'm going to have the Taco Bell or whatever. It has to be something bigger than that. So it has to be health. It has to be doing it for my kids. It has to be because I want to be the best parent, the best grandparent. It has to be bigger than just that.
Yeah. With goal setting and goal tending, I talk about finding a why bigger than your excuses all the time. I think that ties directly to that. Like, what is a why that's going to drive you to stay committed, to put yourself first? And then also talk about filling your own cup.
Yeah.
In order to be able to give and to be the most effective that you can be for others and the people that you want to help, that you're constantly putting before yourself, if you don't have anything to give them, they're getting a lesser version of you. So while, yes, you're putting them before yourself, you're still giving them a lesser version.
And what people don't realize is that actually the time invested at first is a little bit more. But once you get it, it becomes less and less and less. It's just like when you go out and you're starting to train for a marathon. You just don't go out and run 26.2 miles.
You don't?
No, you got to train for it. Same thing when you're learning macros and adjusting what you're doing for your everyday life. But when you start eating well, when you start getting your workouts in, you start sleeping better.
Yeah.
Well, just think about how well you would function if you just slept better. When your hormones are optimized, men and women, testosterone's back in, TSH, your thyroid's functioning. When you feel your best, you have more energy.
Yeah.
How many times do you find yourself going off on somebody because you're hungry, you're trying to do something else, you're overextended, and just because you're just so exhausted? And when you start taking care of yourself and you're not that exhausted anymore, things just start to fall in place better.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes perfect sense. I also love, just from where you've tied it the whole time into, like, this is a science-based approach. It's not just a good idea. And that because we recognize that we all have different bodies types, differences between the male and the female anatomy. Like, there's so many factors that play in. So having that individualized approach to recognize those things. And so because I have somebody here who can bring a better expertise than I can, I know nothing about this topic, and I want to take advantage of your knowledge on it. So you've got experience when it comes to let me word it right. Like, what leads to midlife, menopausal weight gain, and like how to prevent that.
So remember I said we were borrowing from the future self?
Yep.
It's a lot of that. So everything that we did back in our younger years, the constant dieting, when we constant diet, we constant starve ourselves, we were using muscle for fuel. We were slowing our metabolism down that whole entire time. And then that's what you wonder, is like, well, this diet worked before. Why isn't it working again? Well, guess what? Your muscle's gone. So that's why. And now you have more body fat. Body fat doesn't take energy. It doesn't take fuel. Muscle, to keep muscle and to build muscle, takes a lot of fuel. Our problem is that we were over cardio. So we did tons of cardio. We lost our muscle that way. We underate. We lost our muscle that way. We also messed up our hormones. We messed up the ghrelin. We messed up the leptin. We have increased levels of cortisol. So now we're increasing cortisol levels, which unfortunately causes the middle area. And guys don't want it either. It's like the beer gut on guys and menopausal, the muffin top on women. So we've set ourselves up. So what happens is then in our 30s and 40s, we think our metabolism is slowing down. Well, no, what's slowed down is what's called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. That is this right here, me with my hands, walking around, doing laundry, mowing the lawn, playing with your kids. That stuff starts to slow down. You become the taxi mom or the taxi dad. You're driving your kids everywhere. You're not playing with them on the field. You're watching them in the bleachers.
Right.
So that all adds up too. So you put that along with the fact that we've actually slowed our metabolism down because of undereating, overworking out, and now we're sitting more. Well, guess what? Now we're talking about the midlife weight gain. And we've set ourselves up for this. But the good news is that we can reverse it. It's just going back to eating right, building the muscle, start working on that non-exercise. So when you're cleaning your house, just like I just tell myself it's non-exercise activity. It's like, there's a reason why I'm doing this. Those are good things. When you're going outside and maybe mowing your lawn, or your kids are out playing basketball, you're like, hey, I'm going to join in, because this is one is bonding with your kids, but it's also a good thing to be doing. You're not just sitting watching Netflix on TV.
So either way, it all ties back to the situation of, regardless of like where you are at this point, you can start making the healthy decisions now. You can start to make the micro changes in your habits and your diet and your fitness, and reverse effects that have already happened, and be proactive in terms of the long term.
And I know I'll get people to say, well, I'm on thyroid medication. Well, okay, so no, you can't reverse damage to the thyroid, but we can make it so that your body and how your thyroid is now can be optimal.
Okay.
So, there are some medications that, yes, you absolutely have to be on, and thyroid medication is one. We're not going to reverse that.
Right.
But we can make it to where you're not stressing your body out so much so that we have to go even further into, stressing out the thyroid. We don't want to do that. We want to make sure that everything's optimal. So your body's like, hey, I can work, I can build muscle, I can sleep, I'm not under stress. And it's not just stress of, we think about stress of work, stress of traffic.
Yeah.
It's not just that stress. When we're not eating right and we're overworking out, you are stressing your body out in a different way.
Okay. That makes sense. I may have misunderstood.
Okay.
But so I want to make sure that I understand. I think that you had maybe mentioned in terms of blood sugar spiking that that can cause inflammation.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then I don't think you talked about it, but it's something that could be useful. Different signs of metabolic syndrome.
Yeah. So
how do you recognize that?
So what we have to think about is chronic inflammation, and people are like, well, how do you know you have chronic inflammation? What is it? So if you think of inflammation in the first part, so this has been a great season for mosquito bites. I mean, they're everywhere, right?
Oh yeah.
So you get a mosquito bite and it welts up and it becomes hot and it becomes red and it itches, but your body does what it's supposed to. And it sends all the, all the macrophages and IgE and all these little hormones and it decreases the inflammation. The autoimmune response does what it's supposed to. The immune response does what it's supposed to. And a couple days, the mosquito bite's gone, your skin's all cleared up and until the next mosquito bite comes. Think about this way. When you are eating really bad food, meaning the ultra processed food, and that is your normal staple, you are constantly giving your body a mosquito bite inside. So you're constantly, instead of this mosquito bite coming away, see you later, it heals. Every meal, you are throwing inflammatories to your body. Every meal, your body's going, whoa, hold up, what is this? And it's sending out its inflammatory response.
Yeah.
And it never has a chance to cool down. Well, with that comes heart disease, plaques. Your vessels aren't as pliable as they were before. Okay. We're looking at visceral fat, so the fat that surrounds your organs. Maybe have headaches, maybe have joint pain. And all of that are signs of chronic inflammation. Now, when you talk about metabolic syndrome, it's also called syndrome X, is that now we're looking at, okay, is your blood sugar in the morning raised? Because that's one. Is your blood pressure elevated? That's two. What is, if you take a tape measure around your waist, is it on the excessive side? Are you apple shaped? That's always the big one. Are you apple shaped or pear shaped? Apple shaped. When you go to your doctor and you've had your LDL and HDL checked, is your LDL high or HDL low, triglycerides high? 3 of those means that you have metabolic syndrome. And when you have metabolic syndrome, now your increase of heart disease, increase of stroke, increase of Alzheimer's, all of those are now related to chronic inflammation. Okay. So once again, what do? We start fueling our body with things it needs. It doesn't, we think, well, it needs food. That's not food. That's been made in a lab, that's been made in a processing plant. Right. Once your body is a chemical reaction, you throw in ultra processed foods, those chemical reactions that are supposed to happen, the enzymes that are supposed to work don't work. The neurotransmitters that are supposed to work don't work. The hormones that are supposed to be made aren't getting made. So you're doing all these things to mucky up that car. So all the cylinders are not working. Everything's just gunked up. Yeah. Inflammation. I mean, think about car, gunk, right? That would be inflammation of a car. So when you start fueling its premium fuel and you clean everything out, everything sparkles and shines. And that's what we want for our bodies so that we don't have that inflammation.
That's fantastic. Your analogies are on point today. And they help make more sense of it too.
Yeah. It's understanding that maybe I'm not feeling bad because we kind of rationalize how we feel with its age. Oh, I'm feeling this because I hit my 30s. Then I hear it because it's my 40s, because it's my 50s. Right. And it really isn't that. It's what we've been doing. That's why we feel that way. So if you're sitting there going, oh, well, I'm noticing that things just don't feel the same. Right. if you're borrowing from your future self, if you're not fueling your body right, what's that body going to be doing in 20, 30, 40 years?
Yeah. Now the payments do.
The payments do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So here's what I want to know.
All right.
If you could give 1 or 2 pieces of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Oh, well, things I wish I knew then. So the younger self was, of course, I grew up during that time when fat was bad. So in the 70s, everybody was dying of heart attacks. So in the 80s, everything was, fat's bad, so we have to make everything fat-free.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you ever saw the Seinfeld episode with Elaine going into, that was fat-free yogurt, and she started gaining weight and she couldn't figure out if it was fat-free. It doesn't matter, Elaine, it wasn't fat-free, it doesn't matter, it's the yogurt. It's believing that those healthy foods are healthy. I was somebody who's like, it says healthy, it says fat-free, it was processed stuff. I'll just go work out more. Mm-hmm. My younger self had been like, okay, eat real food, quit working out all the time. You would be so much happier. And also embrace who you are. And I think that's a big thing, is the 20-year-old self. It's like, you don't have to look like everybody else. It's taken me a long time to figure that out, but being unique. I don't want to be super skinny. Mm-hmm. I also know super skinny is going to cause me to fall. No, not going to do it. Break a hip, not going to do it. Being strong is where it's at. Being healthy is where it's at.
Yeah. So fulfillment for yourself, for your journey, like finding your own fulfillment.
And being okay with who I am and not feeling I have, that. And then we all want to belong. I mean, that's the nature of the human race.
Right.
But understanding that, being different is okay too.
I love that. So I want to make sure people can find you first off. So in terms of coaching, reaching you, what's your website the best way? I'm also going to add the website.
The easiest way is my website. It's amykwilson.com. And don't forget the K, because there's tons of Amy Wilsons out there. So it's amykwilson.com. It has all my socials. I'm known as the Nutrition Coach Pharmacist on Instagram, but it'll have all my links to my socials. It actually has a thing that you can connect with me. So if you want to set up a one-on-one call, we can do that. Or if you just want to send me an email, we can do that. Yeah. And then there's also where you can learn more or join now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make sure that I drop the links in the show notes.
Yeah.
So make sure you all check it out. Reach out to Amy. She's a wealth of knowledge. I appreciate you being generous with your time today and sharing your experience.
Oh, and I do have a free download for if they listen to this. So if they go to amykwilson.com/ I think it's // one of those podcasts. It's I always get mixed up, forward back. So amykwilson.com / podcast. They'll get a free download.
Awesome. Make sure you all go get the free download. Thank you again for the time today, for sharing. Thank you all for allowing us to be a part of your journey. I already know today's episode was fantastic. So share it, don't forget to subscribe, and ultimately share your comments and your thoughts, and let us know what you think about the topic, to join the conversation, and let's grow together. Hey, what's up, team? I enjoyed the conversation with Amy so much that I signed up for Faster Way to Fat Loss using Amy as my coach. I realized over the last few years, I have been staying on top of workouts and I've been tracking my macros, but I haven't been doing it with intentionality or with setting specific goals. So for me, I wanted to get involved in it so that I can start making those deposits into that account for my future self. If you want to follow the journey, you can follow @goalswithwill.com on social media. And if you want to get involved yourself, if you're ready to start being intentional and making those deposits in your future account, I'm going to drop a link in the show notes and in the comments so that you can get connected to Faster Way to Fat Loss. Let's go get it.